I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. We have one of the most accomplished sports business executives on the show today, Scott O'Neil. He is the CEO of the NHL's New Jersey Devils, the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers, and he heads up the Prudential Center, all three of those things, and that's about half of what he does. Prior to that, he was the president of Madison Square Garden, the Knicks and the Rangers, and also prior to that, the NBA, the league. He spent 8 years there. So I met Scott O'Neil when he was with the NBA, and I worked for the Phoenix Suns at the time. He was our camp leader at the league office and led the teams in their marketing and business operations. And that's when I was first exposed to him. This guy's the Energizer Bunny. He has this energy that's contagious and a zest for life. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about his why not now moments, of course, but also company culture. And oftentimes in sports, the business side for the team and the franchise will be dictated by the performance on the court or performance on the field, how well that team is performing and playing. And Scott seems to have found a way to defy that logic. Regardless of how his teams are doing, he continues to see increases and push revenue on both the ticket sales side and also sponsorship. He knows a thing or two about company culture, and it's a unique twist on company culture and the way that he leads. So we talk about that. We talk about how to run a good meeting, and he has a tip on that. And no big deal, but also Scott shares the secret to life. So we've got that all wrapped up in this episode. Here's Scott. Before we get started, I want to tell you about my partners at Design Pickle. You know when you're in a pickle because you need a design, but you don't have the time or maybe even the skill to do it yourself. Many of us have been there. Design Pickle has been a lifesaver for me. Here's how they're set up. You pay a flat rate monthly fee, and you're given a dedicated designer for all of your needs. You heard that right. Unlimited graphic designs, unlimited requests, and the first 14 days are risk-free. You get a full refund if you cancel in the first 2 weeks. Why Not Now listeners like yourself get 30% off their first month at Design Pickle. You can go to designpickle.com/why not now to redeem the offer. For me, the process has been painless and ego-free. In fact, many of the posts you're seeing on my social media channels were created by my buddies at Design Pickle, specifically Jacob at Design Pickle. That's what's cool, is that you get a dedicated designer. I'm on a first-name basis with my designer. A mentor once said to me, just because you can doesn't always mean you should. Do what you're uniquely qualified to do. Design Pickle helps me do just that. Go to designpickle.com/why not now to redeem the offer. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poo-Pourri. Yep, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poopery have literally taken the smell out of you know what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopery.com. And Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code Why Not Now. That's all one word. Also, you can now get Poopery at Bed Bath & Beyond. Scott O'Neill, welcome to the show. It sounds like you're in a bit of a blizzard. How you doing?
Living the dream. Warm in front of a nice little crackling fire.
There you go. I have a perfect visual of you sitting by the fire. So let's hop in the spirit of Why Not Now. Can you share a time where you had to ask yourself that question? And we'll dive in, dissect it a bit, and talk it through.
Sure. Well, I've had several of those moments. I think I live my life to that, so I could go a whole bunch of different places. But I always think the biggest inflection points come from when you trip and fall. And so, I've been out of work twice. Once I was out of work, out of luck, and out of money, and that was when I started a company that failed miserably due to bad management. And the second was when I left, quote unquote, Madison Square Garden, so I was fired. And I think those two moments, the life is moving so fast these days. I run a pretty hard life, and I live on the roller coaster of it. And so when you get some time to sit back and decompress and reflect, is the time when I think you have a chance to kind of reset and say, okay, I can do it and I can do it now. What is that going to be? And the most recent one, which was about 3.5 years ago, there were two things that I added to my filter in looking at opportunities. And one was working for people I love, like, and respect. And that was a big shift in terms of that was kind of the one leading factor in terms of where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And the second thing that was kind of new to my list is I wanted to be part of a group that created the greatest place in the world to work. And so as those two as like the guiding lights, I was led really directly to Josh Harris and David Blitzer, my current bosses, who are taking over the world of sports, which is really fun. They're incredible guys. They have great values. They're great dads and husbands and incredible bosses. They're world-class deal makers, self-made guys. And they push us every day to say, okay, what if? And that's a great way to wake up in the morning. And so when I started about 3.5 years ago, the Sixers had gone through a pretty nasty trade that decimated the franchise. The season ticket base was kind of at an all-time low, and we decided to do things really differently, and we have, and the results to speak now. It's a really promising future, and the business results have been incredible. And we bought an esports team, and we bought the Prudential Center and Devils, and they went on to buy Crystal Palace of the English Premier League, and we set up an innovation lab. It's just kind of, we wake up every day thinking like, let's get after it and do something new and try something new. And that, the spirit of that is how we walk into everyday life, which is really fun.
Well, congrats. I've been reading about all of the projects and also the accolades. And I definitely want to dive into this. The second thing you mentioned was being the greatest place to work and being a part of that and helping build that. And before we do though, so if we go back 3.5 years and you're no longer at MSG and you've had this, you're probably the most decorated sports business person out there, insane path. And were you just thinking, now what? And you also mentioned the what if.
Wait, you had me at most decorated.
Oh, yeah. So I'm best hair, too, by the way. I had a chat with our mutual friend, Drew Cloud, recently. I said, I get to interview Scott soon. And he's like, oh, you got to talk about his hair, right? So we got to get that in there. But what was that like? I mean, your path, and from the outside looking in, it's just, of course, people don't necessarily see those trips and falls, but you're soaring. What was the real why not now moment? Was it, am I going to continue? And this opportunity came up, obviously, and with New Jersey, and also not just one team, but ended up being, you're not only the CEO of an NBA team, but also NHL, and you've got the Prudential Center. So where does the why not now moment net out there?
I think my why not now moment was really, you go through a process where Madison Square Garden was this magical place with this incredible energy and this huge brand, and I knew it was time. I remember coming home one day and my wife is like, "You've got to figure this out." I was kind of in a tailspin and not doing great, and I wasn't myself, and I wasn't smiling. I wasn't having fun. And so the timing couldn't have been better. And I think like the true moment was, I had this Peter Guber, who's this incredible executive, former chairman of Sony, and now is a part owner of the Golden State Warriors and the Dodgers and a bunch of other things. And he came to see me and he said, "Look, don't let your type A crazy, take over." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He said, "You know what that means." And he said, "Go decompress." And I did. I went to Cabo with Lisa, my wife of 21 years, and I left my phone in my room and I read books and I went for long walks in the sun and ate a lot, way too much, and came back a couple weeks later and pulled my kids out of school. We went to London and Paris, and it was just like this incredible time where your phone is down. You're actually fully connected to the world and yourself and your kids and your friends, and you're learning again and seeing the world differently. And so I think at somewhere between the train between Paris as we were heading back to London, that's my why not now. Like, why not now? Why can't I have this connectedness? Why can't I have this sense of awareness and fun always? And at that moment, it is truly a choice in terms of how you live and what you're going to do and who you're going to do it with. So I think that was the true moment, the true blue moment.
Awesome. Kind of a recalibration, it sounds like. And look at you now. I mean, I can hear it in your voice, and you're known for motivating. And when I worked for the Phoenix Suns several years ago, but it was during the recession, and I will never forget going to a league meeting down in Florida, and you started off your talk with the Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities line. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah.
And it was very moving. And you've always been this kind of motivator for teams. And now looking at your focus on company culture, what tips and tricks do you have? What do you feel like is your secret sauce, because you're known for it?
Yeah, I'll say that's very nice. So I do. I've worked for so many amazing people, and my trick of the trade is I steal from the most talented people in the world who I've worked for. So which is pretty fun. Some of the things that I've learned, some from good and some from bad, was I remember my first day at the NBA. This goes way back. This is the pre-Adam Silver, let's make this a great place commissioner. But I remember sitting outside. I was my first day on the job at the NBA league office, and I was there early because I'm a bit of an early bird. And I sat outside a door and waited almost 90 minutes for someone to come let me in. And then I was a vice president when I started, and there wasn't, they weren't prepared. So they put me at the intern desk and moved the intern. And it was 2 months before I had business cards, a phone, a computer, an office, expense checks reimbursed. And so I think about that time, not badly. I had my most magical time in my career at the NBA, but I always think about that and the more I've done research and read, it's pretty clear like that those first 30 days are critical to the success and happiness of employees. So we call it our onboarding program. So when you come work with us, and we do everything we can to make those first 30, 60 days not only tolerable, but also memorable. Everybody has anxiety when they start a job. And so can we take some of that off the shelf? Can we connect you with people? Can we send you things before you start? Can we get you up to speed? We get you a book. I think it's the best book ever written. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. And so everyone that starts has to read the book. And before they're announced to the organization, they write me a note, and they just say, here's how this might impact me in my personal life and professional life. We set up one-on-ones. We have a total program to make sure that you feel like you're part of the family. We have leadership and learning breakfast we put you through. We put you through this video. We walk you through our culture, our norms, our mores, like everything you want to know about what it takes to make a place a world-class place to work. It starts there. I think that's where I think the crux of it is, where it starts. And then we have a commitment that, there's a book, there's a curse word in the title, so I'll spare you, but it's like no a-holes allowed or something like that. It's not a very good book, but the message is fantastic.
No a-holes allowed? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the book. And so we don't have jerks that work here in any of our places. We ferret them out. They ferret themselves out very quickly. When you come here, whether you are a receptionist or an executive vice president to a newly minted sales rep to the head of marketing, you know that every day the decisions you make and the how, not just the what, matter. So, and I think that's a pretty interesting distinction. And so we have encouraged others to seek other opportunities quite a bit who are really, really talented and really good at their jobs, but they weren't committed to the how, and the how really matters. Like, how are we going to work together? How are you going to get your job done? But it's certainly a place that is transparent. We understand what our values are. We celebrate quite a bit in terms of success and wins, and we have created a place that's pretty special. The one thing too, which I love, in New Jersey, you commit to 82 hours, and in Philadelphia, 76 hours of service. So that's another thing we do that I think is fantastic, in that, we shut down the office about once a month, and we go and roll up our sleeves and serve. And we might be doing something as simple as a beautification project, or we might be mentoring or reading or teaching kids. We spend a lot of time in the community in areas that need it most. And I think it's a combination of things that make it a great place. But I think at the end of the day, it's the character and talent of the people deciding to say, like, this is what I want. I want to work in the greatest place of all time. It's almost, I hate to make a comparison to Disney, but, it's like that painful smile of the Disney workers. Mm-hmm. Like, they're opting in because they know that if they have that demeanor, they should work at Disney. And I think that more and more people are coming to us and looking to work with us because they know we have a certain style and a certain way, and it isn't easy. We work really hard. This is not Patsy, hug you, tell you you're great, and soft stuff. If you're around, it's worth talking to folks that work here. The closer you get to the sun, the tougher it is at our place. It is a very, very hard, grinding, demanding, challenging place that just happens to be one of love and respect. And it's a really fascinating combination. And I would love nothing more than take full credit. Unfortunately, it's like all I can do is clear the deck and provide the opportunity. And then it's such a talented team in Philadelphia, and it's such a ridiculously talented team in New Jersey. It's like they decide, and when you are so empowered to feel like, okay, I can, we have a bunch of trite expressions, but one is, if there's a piece of paper on the ground, pick it up. And that's both literal and figurative. And I'll give you an example from my first day in Philadelphia. Had gone through a hard time, so I'm walking through the office. Let's go through a tour of the office, because it's always an interesting way on your first day to walk through, and you say, like, are you asleep or are you awake? Like, what are you seeing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because oftentimes the physical plant of an office will tell you so much, like volumes and volumes about how the business is operated. And we walked past a little closet, and I said, hey, there's a Coke machine in there, and we're a Pepsi team, right?
Oh.
And they said, yeah, that's been here, and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, let's just have that removed, And next day we had a meeting again. I said, hey, the Coke machine's still here. And they said, oh, well, Scott, it takes time. And I said, hey, guys, like, I just want to raise the bar of expectations. Like, when we're either going to agree to do this the right way or we're not. And so who here is going to have this removed by lunchtime? And the guy raised his hand, and Larry Muley, still here, because he raised his hand.
Good choice.
And he said, yeah, I'll take care
around.
of it. And sure enough, by noon, it's out of there. And it happened to me at Madison Square Garden, too, the first day I got there, and there was a big banner up for, anyway, I can't think of his name, but it was a big 300-foot banner, and he's on it. I'm like, guys, we have to decide. He was traded 3 months ago. We have to decide as an organization, like, who we want to be, because everything speaks in the end. And so you can, and so we decide in the places we are now that that's not acceptable. And we did there too. I was at a one-time fun time in Madison Square Garden. But it is a cultural shift in terms of how you approach life.
It's a unique combination because in terms of culture, because you mentioned the love, like, and respect, and you really care about each other, but there's also a level of intensity and discipline and expectation. And looking at the spectrum of company cultures, I've spent a lot of time around Zappos and Tony Hsieh, and one of my mentors, and
Maybe the best ever, right?
Potentially. I mean, it's all relative, but they're very, very different in, you don't see a lot of that discipline. You don't see a lot of that rigor, and it shows. In some ways, you would walk around, if you haven't, I don't know if you've toured their office before or not, but it's the opposite of what you just described. This is one of the first kind of examples of bringing in that, not rough around the edges, but definitely polished around the edges, companies and organizations that has really taken some leaps on the culture side. So it's nice to know you can have both. It's nice to have that as an example. And not only that, looking at sports, having just worked for not a long time with the Phoenix Suns, but in that environment, our morale would rise and fall based on the team performance. And it wasn't because we didn't have great leadership, because we absolutely did. Rick Welts, he's incredible.
He's incredible.
Yep. Absolutely. And yet at the same time, I couldn't help but feel that, especially working in partnerships or in ticket sales. It's like you can't control what the team's doing on the court. Yet you have, and reading about the performance of the last couple of years with your teams, you have a way of defying that to a certain degree. How do you make season ticket sales shine when the team may not be? How do you do that?
No, we've certainly flipped the script on what should be, and we've tripled our season ticket base and tripled our sponsorship base in seasons where over the last 3.5 years we've had, they tell me, the second most wins over that period in the history of the league. So we certainly don't rise and fall by wins and losses, but there is a sense of combination just in terms of raw business, of kind of communication and marketing and sales, and I think we've done a pretty good job and have really talented people kind of driving our messaging, and our sales team it's the best sales team I've ever seen, and best culture I've ever come across. So that team led by Jake Reynolds, does a fantastic job, and Chris Heck runs the whole deal. And I think we work really well in concert with each other. But I would say that it's certainly unusual, but there is a common drive. It's definitely a superstar culture, which presents all kinds of issues on other fronts. But you are here to rise and succeed, and you are here to do things that have never been done before, and you are here to break new ground. And that's how we talk. We also talk quite a bit. I think it's a really millennial-focused office. We're really, really young. I mean, I'm 46 and I'm an old man in this office. We have SVPs at 30. I have a VP up in New Jersey. He's 28 years old. He's managing 60 people. And so, you're thinking, holy moly, right? So it definitely is millennial driven and millennial focused, which provides, it's my favorite group I've ever gotten a chance to work with, my favorite generation. I just think it's a group that is, everyone says they're entitled, which I agree, and everybody says they need too much access, and I agree, and they need too much information, and I agree. I will combat all that but if you give them that, they'll work until their fingers hurt. They are smart, they're connected, they're driven, they want to run the company, they want to sit in your seat. How empowering is that? Mm-hmm. And all I have to do to get that is give them a little access, give them information, and create a great place to work. That's a pretty good trade-off. And so we have this, it's a really, really fun place. And I think, and a lot of it's, wrapped around, of the, say, 500 employees, I'd say 400 of them are probably under 26. And so how incredible is that?
It's a case study in itself, I bet.
Yeah, that's so fun. It's really
awesome.
fun. And so we talk a lot, too, about life. We talk about personal growth plans and professional growth plans. We're not as interested in making sure that, this is certainly not IBM. You do not have to stay with the Devils or the Sixers or the Prudential Center. You don't have to stay with us or our Dignitas or esports team for 20 years. What we say is like, hey, you come give it your all. Let's together figure out what you want to do with your career and your life, and let's see how we get you there. In the meantime, you got to be world class at your job. And so, and that's a pretty good contract to have, Mm-hmm. Let's attract the best talent in the world. And hey, whether this is working really well, but you want to jump off and try something new, or you have aspirations to do something differently, let us help you. And that's been, I think, a pretty effective contract.
So looking at leadership for a minute and our current, I'm not going to call it political climate because it's just so overused, and it's going to be political climate for the next however long. But as a leader, I'm seeing, certain CEOs of huge companies voice their opinions in some cases of how they feel about whether it be a social issue, whether it be about politics, so on and so forth. And obviously some don't. What are your thoughts on that as a leader? Knowing that, you want to inspire, and working with all of these millennials, I'm sure that there's a strong desire for them to mobilize and to speak their voices, and you've got social media. What are your thoughts on the slippery slope of standing up for what you believe, but also having the responsibility of a huge company that you're running?
Sure. So very fascinating question and incredibly fascinating times. And, as a dad of 3 daughters, it's very difficult to watch the campaign unfold. And yet, my public-facing voice has to be very much neutral, in my opinion, when it comes to politics. However, and there's a big caveat to that. One is that, again, we have a millennial workforce. They're very connected. They're very passionate. And I want to make sure that they're very comfortable and understanding that they can express who they are and what they believe. Okay? And they do. And also, we're very, we also have extremely diverse. We work very hard to have, I think, one of the most diverse workforces there is. So we have a very diverse workforce. So when some of the language through the campaign was out there, I can't sit idly by and hope that passes by. I have an organization that is looking to me to lead, and so I listen. We rented out a theater at one point and saw Queen of Katwe, which I don't know if you've seen it. It wasn't a huge selling movie. We did the same with McFarlane, which are 2 stories of, I think they both tell stories of just overcoming adversity. And we talk quite a bit in our monthly staff meetings and in our smaller kind of group meetings about what it takes and what is so special about being part of this organization and giving you a platform to drive change. And my invitation to our team here is always about how can we leverage the platform we have to drive social change? And I would much rather invite you to do that in the confines of the organization. And so if Black Lives Matters is an important organization for you, let's work with our foundation, our community relations group, and our social and digital media team. Let's use our group that has outreach in the community to go make a connect, and let's run a program. Let's do something good. I think sometimes in today's day and age, my frustration is congratulations, you sent 4 nasty tweets, but you didn't vote. Hey, congratulations, you watched 2 great shows on television. You took a shot at somebody who's famous, but you're not serving yourself. And, we are an organization of action. Like, we go and serve and help and drive change and make the world a little bit better. And you know what? Like, again, it's like, this is what you do if you work here. And and I always say, like, you don't have to do this, but you're going to have, if you work here, you're going to have to. It's okay, But we are part of, we have a very, like I said, a young, diverse workforce who's looking for leadership. And at this time, so I was up pretty active internally, talking about what I thought and how the election was going and how things were handled, because I thought that was an obligation. But publicly, it's different and difficult. And we talked quite a bit as an organization about, how an organization has to work like ours in the sports and entertainment business, has to work within the framework it's given to drive the change they want. So less talk, more action is kind of our motto, if you will.
Props to you for finding a way to not be paralyzed by the idea of having to take a certain side, voice an opinion a certain way, and giving your team a way to implement, kind of mobilize their feelings through your community relations, through whatever it may be. I was cyber stalking a bit, and I saw you share the Audi commercial, the Super Bowl commercial.
Oh, how great was that spot?
Loved it.
Was that amazing? Like from the start to the finish of that spot.
So well done. And I was too. And I know you have 3 daughters. I'm also now following your mother on Twitter, who is a rock star.
No, she got, this is just a quick story on my mom. Like, she is this incredible woman, and she got her PhD, I think, when she was 65. And she's been working since I was, as long as I can remember. She started operating daycare. We didn't have any money, so my dad was working at a college, and she was working at a daycare. There were 5 of us, all under 7. Then she ended up buying a school. Then she bought another school and put a for kids with disabilities. They were called handicapped kids at the time. Kids with disabilities. Another school. And then she went to go work with my dad in leadership, training, and development. And I remember like it was yesterday, because we were all about the same age, my brothers and sister, and we would collate books for them and do all the stuff to get them ready to go on their trips. And at that point, they were working with like McDonald's and Texaco and Xerox and ADP, and had these big contracts. And so we had gone from kind of famine to feast. And I remember my mom saying, "Hey, do you want to come see me?" And she was going to Denver. And so it was one of my first flights. And so I'm on this flight. I stayed in her room, and I got up early, and I sat in the back of the room. And I just saw this woman just walk into the room, 100, mostly men at the time, and just had this amazing and incredible presence. And, you see these great speakers, they get up and they have the room. She had the room in 8 seconds. She was this magical storyteller, and just like weaving story after story and driving these points home, driving people to tears and then laughter and then tears and then laughter. And I thought, wow, someday I want to be able to do that. And that is think of the impression that has on a 13-year-old boy growing up in New York, and you see this woman who's just has captured the world and owns a stage. I'm like it's a pretty amazing thing when we talk about how we talk about the kind of dad I want to be, the kind of husband I want to be, the kind of boss I want to be, the kind of coworker I want to be to the women executives I get to work with every day. So it's had quite an impact. She has had probably the most impact of anybody in my life.
That's an awesome story, and it helps fill in the understanding and just kind of the thoughts of how you've come to be such a supporter of women in sports, of women in general. I know you have a lot of powerful women executives, and especially in sports, it's a different dynamic. But considering that you also have 3 girls, and back to kind of this commercial, so I was super jazzed about the commercial, and someone tweeted me, "Oh, it's a bummer they don't have any women on their board." And so then they included this photo, and I click in, and of course it's all men, all white men. And how do we get more women in leadership positions, Scott? I mean, because it's
sure. Good question. So first of all, our board is it's the owners. So there's no we're not recruiting board members in. It's just the guys that. Sure.
It's a default of who owns the.
So yeah, but nonetheless, but I will say in terms of the women exec, I mean, I would say we're very proud of the number of women executives. Laura Price is an EVP who's just been in the business 20 years. She runs a team. I mean, she runs every bit of the operation of the team. And Donna Daniels up in New Jersey with the Prudential Center and Devils, same thing on her end. Those are the 2 linchpins of the whole business. And so, and they're, I guess, from my perspective, I've known both of them I've known Donna for 15 years and Laura for about 20. And they're 2 of the most people I respect most in the entire business. And so, I think, as, our sales team, for example, in Philadelphia, 6 of the top 10 people are women. And that doesn't happen much in sports, but you have to figure out, like, what environment do you want, and can women be successful here? And do they have role models they can look up to and say, I want to be her when I grow up? Laura Toscani, who might have been handling the communications, same thing.
Yep.
She's just incredible mom, total world beater at her job, and incredible mom. So what a great, I told her this during our interview process. I said, look, it's great. You've got 2 kids. That's going to be really important here. She's like, what? I'm like, oh, it's just really important because we have a lot of young women. They're going to look up to you. And I remember her first day I was taking her around, and this young woman, her name's Ashley, she's one of our top sellers. She walks by, she's like, oh, you're Laura. You're the mom with 2 kids. I was like, how cool is this?
That's awesome.
Like, everything plays out. And it doesn't, like, you don't snap your fingers and have an equally balanced workforce, half women, half men. It doesn't happen. It happens over time.
Oh, for
But
sure.
it always starts with leaders. You need leaders, and you want people that can be role models. And so you want someone to look up to say, I want to be her. In our place, the good news is like, it could be a man or a woman saying, I want to be her, or it could be a man or a woman saying, I want to be him. Like,
exactly.
there's none of that crap in our office. And it's amazing. And I think, look, the world is a changing, as they say, and I don't think there's any way you have to, quote unquote, be to be a successful woman. I think you be who you are. And certainly in our place. The woman who runs our foundation, Amy Heaver, is a world beater. She's amazing. So I think we have, like, a great sense. Katie Grossman is one of my favorite executives I've met. She's emerging. She's young. She's 30 or so. But running our marketing in Philadelphia, everything. I mean, she's running half the business. You think, all right, here we go. Great. Another talented, smart, cool, funny, athletic woman. Fantastic. Let's do it. When you have that power in place, it's like, it's natural. It brings in more women because they walk in there like, okay, there is no glass ceiling here. My glass ceiling is a ceiling in our place. The only ceiling we have on is the one you put on yourself, because we've got multiple properties. We've got great opportunity. I don't care if you're a man, woman. I don't care if you're 28 or 58. I actually don't. I want talented people who want to take on the world, who are great teammates and do it in a character-driven way. That, we had to jam a little bit early on in terms of our diversity hiring, which you do in a change situation sometimes. But now it's just a way of life. So that part is pretty inspiring and cool to me.
And you really did enable it, though. I think that I have a theory that most of my mentors have been men, and I'm super grateful for that. And I feel like we'd accelerate the process of having more diversity and just acceleration toward equality, really, if more men would mentor women, and vice versa, for sure. But just by the sheer numbers, that's the way it kind of nets out. And so you've enabled that. And without even thinking it through or labeling, it's just a part of who you are, which everybody else is going to feel that and kind of take that on too. So thank you, especially in sports. It can be a tall order to find that type of, not just in sports, but in leadership in general. Switching gears for a moment, you've given the graduation address at Harvard Business School, right?
You dug deep for that one.
Your team's just really good. I got to give them props.
Did they give that up? I got to take that. They can't be saying that stuff.
No, don't worry about it. Don't be getting anybody in trouble.
No, what was cool?
What
was cool about that was, like, I wasn't supposed to go to Harvard Business School. I was like, I got into 2 schools. I applied to 10 schools coming out of high school. I went to Our Lady of Lourdes High School in Poughkeepsie, not exactly the Choate Rosemary Hall of high schools. It was a wonderful experience, if any of them are listening. I wasn't supposed, most of the folks I went to high school with are in and around that same area. I had big dreams and big aspirations, and I applied to all these schools and got into 2 of them, and so I had this chip on my shoulder. And then I didn't go to, the standard route to Harvard Business School is you go to Princeton, then you go work for McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, and then you go to Harvard, and then you come back and you go work on, somewhere on Wall Street or be an investment banker or a consultant, and you have a great life. And here I am working as an assistant a marketing assistant for the Nets. That's my first job out of school. So my path wasn't the same. So getting there was a pretty incredible experience for me. I mean, and I got to see the world differently, in a world I wasn't aware existed. I got to think bigger and think differently. They didn't want to run sales for a team. They wanted to own the team. It's just a different mentality. I mean, I have so many funny stories. Like my first day there, it's intimidating as it is to walk on the campus, and you're convinced you're the dumbest person there, and they made a mistake. And I'm sitting at lunch, and I had I missed orientation, which was a really dumb thing, but it was my wife's fault. We went skiing because it was a big snowstorm. It was up in Boston, and we went up to Vermont and skied and missed orientation, which was so dumb. But nonetheless, right, great skiing. So I'm sitting down at lunch thinking, like, what am I doing? I had a cool job at the Eagles. I was just starting to make money. I loved our life there, and two people sit down next to me. I'm like, oh, great. I turn down to one guy. I have no idea what he's saying because English is it takes a little while to understand the cadence of the accents because the third of the students have English as a second language. And so I'm just trying to get out of the conversation. I turn around, this woman's talking. I said, hey, what'd you do before you went to school? And when they asked me, I would tell them I was a popcorn vendor at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, which was kind of funny. And I straight-faced it the entire time. And then she's like, I was helping the Russian government restructure the economy. I'm like, what am I doing here? And then the other guy, turns out his dad was the king of Liechtenstein. And that's my first day. I'm thinking, and they both became very good friends. But my first day, I'm thinking, like, what am I doing? And so to go from that to being selected by your peers, your friends, to speak and represent the class at graduation was probably the most humbling day of my life.
That's a biggie right there. That's a put that on your refrigerator type of moment. So the secret to life, tell me about it.
Secret to life. So this isn't mine, but I stole it. So I was in L.A. at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is this cool old school hotel in Beverly Hills. And Sean Sada, one of my friends from work, I said, hey, you need to meet Barbara Streisand's manager. I was like, great. So we sit down and we were, he's like, he's probably not going to like you. I'm like, come on. What kind of intro is that? She said, I'm just saying, I don't think your bit is going to work. I'm like, what bit? What are you talking about? So I sit down and we start telling stories and we're laughing back and forth. And he leans over, he says, hey, do you want to know the secret to life? I was like, I just reach into my pocket, I get my phone, and I just hit record. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, if you're going to tell me the secret to life, I'm 100% filming this and 100% going home and showing my kids. And he starts laughing. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. I'm like, all right, well, what is it then? So I have it on film. It's so awesome. And he says, you get out of bed, number one, you get out of bed in the morning, you put your feet on the ground, and you're so passionate about what you do, you sprint to your job. I was like, that's good. I said, I like that. I said, what's number two? He said, number two, at night, you sprint with equal passion home. And it sounds so simple, but it is so, to me, so real and a good guidepost for a lot of us.
Wow. That's good. Oh, wow. Don't lose that clip.
I know.
No, yeah, I like it. So one quick tactical question, because I'm just curious and I think the world could use some insight on this, but and then we'll get to the other side of why not now, something that you've been thinking about doing. I hear you run really great meetings, and whether it's staff meetings, tips and tricks. I mean, feel free to just bullet them off. But in this day and age, our meetings are too long. They're grueling. We have too many. What are your guardrails there?
Oh boy. So I'm not a very good manager. I'm a good leader. I'm still working on the management stuff. So I have a long road to go. Where people might say I run good meetings, I run great if it's a show, which you saw at the NBA. Putting on a show, a monthly staff meeting in front of 250 staffers in Prudential Center, or we do it in Philadelphia too, and we get up and we have PowerPoints and video, and we bring people up and we have fun, and we inform them about the business, and we talk about the way we can change the world and blah, blah, blah. That stuff, got it. In terms of, doing the basics of having an agenda, having a time, running a meeting. I'm not world class. The one, though, change that I have put in place this year that I would recommend to everybody and everywhere is that we have a phone table. You come in, you put your phones down, and it's really frustrating to a lot of the folks because they're like, well, I have some busy thing. I was like, hey, I'm asking to be connected for 45 minutes, and I said I don't want you to wait till I walk in. Like, part of the magic of a meeting and bringing people together is the human touch and the human connection, and I think it's lost.
Yeah.
I think, like, you walk into a meeting, and before it starts, everybody's sitting down, peering at their phone, answering an irrelevant email. It doesn't matter. Instead of asking you, how did your day go today? Is there anything I can do to help you? How is your friend doing, the one that was in a car crash? How about, what a game last night? Wasn't that fun? Or, hey, I might need some help on this new campaign. Or, like, there's none of that because we're all just staring straight down. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, it sounds so simple. And just have a table. I have a little phone, like a little card on it. It just says, leave your phones here. And they come in, and if they don't, I taunt them in the meeting, which I'm sure is in the management 101 book either.
That's part of the rigor.
Yes, be connected, be present, be with me. Like, look me in the eye and talk to me. Like, understand who I am as a person. Like, respect your neighbor. All that kind of basic stuff that we learned when we were in kindergarten is pretty applicable when you're in a meeting.
Bringing it back. I like it. And when you sprint home, do the same at dinner, right?
Same. Get your phones down. How many parents in the world are saying, get your phone down. Hey, all the stuff. Like, put them in a box.
That's good. Okay, so is there anything rolling around the back of your mind? Even though I know that Why Not Now is in your DNA, there's probably very few times you actually even ask yourself that because you're just wired that way. But is there anything that you've been thinking about doing? And it's time to ask yourself, why not now? All right, bring it.
First of all, I love the platform, Why Not Now? I think it's amazing. I think you're amazing. That's the first thing. Secondly,
thank you.
two things. One I just did recently, which is, I'm not going to have a religious revival here with you, but I just got baptized into the Mormon church.
Oh.
My wife's a Mormon. And it was definitely a Why Not Now moment, but it just happened. It was 3 months ago. But pretty incredible just to see the world differently and actually say, okay, let's go. I have enough signs. I've been prompted enough. Let's go. So that was the 3 months ago.
Yeah, we could totally dig into that one.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, we could go on that forever, and I could talk about it forever, but I won't. The second one, which I'm working on now, which is a result of that, is there's a speaker. My wife went to BYU in Utah. We got married in Park City, and she has a speaker that she goes to this education week at BYU every year, and she would talk about him all the time. His name is Randall Wright. And when I was making the decision to get baptized, she said, hey, you should just read this book. You know, this guy, he's my favorite speaker in the world. He's funny. He's entertaining. When I go to, and this education week is like all these different speakers for a week at BYU, and you just go to a bunch of classes, and she's gone for the last 15 years or so. She always comes back with books and notes, and like, hey, we should try this, and they said this is about family, and this is about church, and this is about health and wellness, and this is about, you know, marriage and family, and all that. It's kind of cool learning. And so after the class, she went up to the guy and said, hey, look, I just want to let you know, like, I think your book played a small part in my husband's conversion. I just want to let you know, like, thank you, blah, blah. He's like, hey, give me your email, blah, blah, blah. So my wife's like, yeah, here it is. And he's like, and by the way, you're my favorite speaker of all time. And so it turns out he's coming through Philadelphia with his wife, and he still has her email and emails. And so she puts me on the email and said, hey, you should come to a Sixer game. So he brings his wife to a Sixer game. We have a ball, and we hit it off, and we tell stories and all this kind of thing. And he has a great little, his latest book is on, he believes that everybody should journal for stories. This actually might be good for you. He talks about a 3-word journal. He's like, nobody has time to journal anymore. Everyone's too busy. But you know what the stories are you want to tell. So could you imagine if you had a 3-word journal where if there's something that happened in your life, you can put 3 words, and you could pick that paper up at any time in your life and tell the story based on those 3 words. And then you could categorize them based on, you know, what types of stories you want to tell. And anyway, so it's this whole bit about 3 words.
I
so
like
we're going through it. It's so smart. So I actually started to do it. So he called me afterwards, like, hey, would you ever write a book? I'm like, yes, I've always wanted to. He's like, well, what would you write it on? I said, learning. I said, I think the way you stay young. I said, I think the way you grow. I think the way you manage, the way you lead, the way you parent. I said, I think you get better and better and better if you're open to learning. We call it in our organization, we call it being palms up. Like you walk into every situation, palms up, meaning instead of folding your arms, we're palms up. I'm open to learning. I'm open to listening. I'm open to growing. And he said, kind of like mentoring. I said, kind of. He's like, okay. I said, we write a book. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we're doing it. So we're actually doing it. So
Whoa.
I sent a note out, and you can participate as well if you want. Send me a note of someone who taught you a lesson, what impact it had on your life.
You did.
I will. I did? Did you send me one back?
Yes. But
do I have one for you?
Yeah,
I did.
No, thank you. It was thought provoking. So
I still have to grade them, so you're going to get a grade from me, by the way, but you'll never know it.
No, I want to know for sure, please.
Okay.
Just like I like to know my Uber score and everything. So
I got 200 of these back.
Oh,
and he has 200. And so now we're in the process of going through them, and he's coming into town in a couple weeks. We're going to share the stories with each other, figure out like which stories go where and how it's going to work. But I was like, this is awesome. So that's one of those things, like, why not now? Why not?
Oh my gosh, I can imagine the matrix of these stories,
and he's a real writer. Like, he's a real writer. Like, I can barely string two sentences together, and he's he's written 12 books and blah blah blah. So I think that the collaboration of it will be fun. I'll be more, I can add, I think, some content, but he's the writer. But pretty cool, and a wonderful guy, and he's smart, and it's cool, and it's like the connectedness of how that all happened is pretty fun.
How this wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been, you hadn't had your palms up, right? Palms up. It's interesting. Well, that's exciting. Do you have a title?
We do not. Do you have any suggestions?
Say palms up. I don't know why that really stuck with me. I don't, but I'll definitely give it some thought. I'm sure you'll arrive there in person. It's always a fun thing to do. You can start throwing stuff against the wall. That's exciting. Super cool. Couple rapid fire questions, and I'll let you go. But this has been super fun. The first is favorite book of all time.
Leadership and Self-Deception.
Okay, which you mentioned earlier.
By the Arbinger Group. Best book ever written.
Definitely include that in the show notes. Are you reading anything right now that is really resonating?
I'm reading Men of Honor. I just finished Around the World in 80 Days. Pretty good book.
Awesome.
So I usually have like 4 or 5 books on my on the night shelf, and I typically only actually read them when I'm on a long flight or a long trip, and I don't even go through them because I'm always working, and then I take like 40 minutes and just read. So, but I typically, like at night, will read for 10 minutes just to get my brain rolling again. So, but those are the 2 I can think of.
Nice. Okay. What keeps you up at night?
I think my kids. It's a rough world out there, especially girls are tough on each other. I tell you that, especially in high school. I mean, I got 2 teenage daughters and a 10-year-old, and I want them to be confident and strong and tough and smart and comfortable and happy. And if nothing else happens to me in my life, in my work, and that's my legacy. That's a heck of a legacy to lead. And so that's the only thing in terms of, do I worry about our president? Does that keep me up at night? It doesn't keep me up at night. Do I worry about it? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Do I worry about what's going on in the world? Do I worry that 1 out of every 5 people in Philadelphia go to bed hungry? Yes, I worry about that. It stresses me out. But if you had to press something like to my head and say, what is it? It's actually about my girls.
And I can imagine 2 teenagers and 10-year-old, and then this the world of social media too adds a whole new dynamic from.
Yes, it sure does.
Side note, we can talk about this offline and I can email you, but I have a Young Girls Leadership Conference. It's in its 2nd year. It's been in Phoenix. Now we're headed to Austin that maybe your 10-year-old would want to attend and potentially
that would be
even
awesome.
Contribute and give a talk if she wanted. It's really cool.
And what are the age of the girls that go?
So my mentee, I met her when she was 11. She has her own business. She's now 13. So last year, we're still playing with the age range. It's super critical, obviously, to get the right group. But now that she's 13, we're thinking like the 10 to 13 range.
I got 2.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So they've been to great ones. They've been to one called Be the Best You, and then there's one called, I think it's called Girls. I want to say. I can't remember. So my girls, we'd be great candidates.
Okay, I'll send you more info. It's
please.
Pretty
That'd
incredible.
Be awesome.
And they get the chance to tell stories, grab the mic, and it's cool. Pirates or ninjas? Who's tougher?
Pirates or ninjas? Ninjas.
Do you want to back that up?
Yeah, because I think they do it without anybody watching. And I love that.
Interesting
And I think there's something special about, like, I think anybody that does good work is amazing, and I applaud them. Those that do it without the pat on the back or without being in front of the camera, I have a lot more love for.
That's the most thoughtful answer I've heard for that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And final question. Some people don't like it, but I always learn from it, and I think others do too, is what advice would you give your younger self? And you can choose what age that would be.
I think this would be every age for me. It would be take a breath and be more patient. And this is one of the first times in my life where I actually am at peace more. I know I heard your ad for your meditation app, which I was just going to ask
you how you keep your mind healthy.
I'm on it. I'm going to try it. It's a good ad. I'm going to live it. You have one convert, Tom, at least. So I would say I haven't done a great job in my life about finding peace and being, content and reflective and patient. And that's not like the natural state of my being. Like I'm typically go, fight. And I'm moving towards a different space, I hope.
That's awesome to hear. And knowing, you referred pretty much to yourself as A-type earlier, and I'd say that's pretty safe to say that you're intense and competitive. And
I think I said type A loon.
Oh.
That's kind of how I refer to myself,
Okay.
Which is probably how most people that know me do.
Well, with that, how do you implement that? How do you take action? You mentioned Headspace, which is awesome. Is there anything else you're doing to make sure that?
Prayer and reflection, two separate things for me. It's like, I know, I think meditation, I have tried spotty. I've been spotty with it. When I do it, I'm better. I'm healthier. I'm thinking more clearly. When I take time to actually think, just let your mind be and be still. I'm healthier and better. It's really, really a fight for me. So I struggle with it, but I am working on like moments to schedule in every day of prayer and reflection, and I'm going to add meditation now.
Oh, I love it. Keep me posted on how it goes. I'll get you set up too, so I'll get you
That'd be even better.
Code for that. But thank you so much for your time, Scott. This has been awesome, and I've been watching you from afar for quite a long time, and it's a pretty neat feeling to be able to talk to you and ask you these questions. So thanks for your honesty too in answering.
Likewise. I'm a huge fan. Keep up the incredible work. Way to change the world. It matters.
Thank you. And vice versa. Thanks for your important work. And we'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy.
One of the things that really resonated with me that Scott said in that conversation was when he made his most recent transition from Madison Square Garden to this new set of roles. He said, I added to my filter that I only wanted to work for people that I love, like, and respect. That's a biggie. That's really interesting if you think about it in that context, and also what it takes to be successful. That's a big ingredient, I would think, in the formula. So just something to think about there. This is the 30th episode of the Why Not Now show, and I would like to know who you would like to hear from as far as guests go on the show. We've had so many different types of people, and they're all interesting and inspiring in their own way. But if you have certain individuals that you would love to hear from, let me know. Tweet me, send me a note on Facebook or Instagram. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on all of those platforms, and we'll see what we can do. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?